Another Mary Truth Talks. My name is Marianne. I'm your host, and this is the MTT Show. Before we begin, follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and X, MARY_truths with an S. That's MARY_truths with an S. If you believe in mind-body elevation, you believe in the wellness mindset, subscribe to our Patreon account. It's only $5 a month. I am dropping new workout videos on a monthly basis. And follow us on Instagram at MBElevate. That's MBElevate. All right, so we have a lot to unpack this week, as always. And let's get on with it, shall we? So we got Chicago mayor claims federal government is inciting civil war. Letitia James indictment. That was no shocker there. Government shutdown day 12. Democrat running for AG of Virginia gets exposed for deadly messages towards his political opponent. Deadly, literally. President Trump gets dedicated the Nobel Peace Prize by the Nobel Peace Prize winner. So, before we get into the show, subscribe if you haven't already. Those who have subscribed, thank you so much, because of you guys, the show is actually being shown to different people with all different points of views, because at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do. We're just giving an alternative point of view than what people are mostly watching, whether it's left wing or right wing. People swear that I am a hardcore right wing. If you know anything about me, you know that I'm not. I'm pretty common sense on most things. I do have my strong convictions, but for the most part, I can get along with anybody if you choose to get along with me. So let's get on with it. Subscribe, like, and share, and let's get on with the show. Chicago mayor claims federal government is inciting civil war. My goodness. But he's definitely lowering the temperature, let me tell you. Let's go. Let's watch this. We're going to need the volume up.
It's calling for the basic rule of law. In the coming days and weeks, we may be pushed, if not forced, to take even more dramatic action.
I don't think they can hear this.
You don't think so? Why not? Can y'all hear the video?
If this administration continues to escalate and provoke our people. In closing, last night I spoke with the governor, and he informed me that the Trump administration is deploying Texas National Guard to our city. We will speak to our response later today. We'll do that with the governor as well as the attorney general. For now, let me just say that we are unequivocally going to continue to reject the military occupation of our city. The Trump administration must end the war on Chicago. The Trump administration must end this war against Americans. The Trump administration must end its attempt to dismantle our democracy. Right as we are making historic progress in reducing violence, the Trump administration is seeking to destabilize our city and provoke chaos. We said that they would use ICE as a pretext to send in the National Guard. And now they are doing just that. I've also said for the last couple of years that the extreme right in this country refused to accept the results of the Civil War.
What?
They have repeatedly called for a rematch.
What? 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 The Civil War was because the right had to literally force the left to free fucking slaves. Oh my God. Man, I told God, please guide me to not curse. And this guy pissed me off with his ignorance that I cursed like 5 minutes before the show started. All right, I'm going to do my best to not curse after today. Listen, do you understand how stupid that sounds? The right needs to... What? I can't even... Can you repeat that? Can you go back? Let's rewind really quick because I want to make sure I heard him right. That's crazy. That's crazy. Let's hear that one more time.
People, groups against one another. They want to divide and conquer. And as I said, in the South Shore, and this has been said very clearly, black people in one van and immigrants in another. In the face
you
of this
continued it. I want to hear
unprecedented
that
threat,
Civil War
this
part
moment
again.
calls for unity.
Okay.
Black, brown, white, Asian, young,
Oh,
old,
yeah, you're
north
right.
side, west side, south side, we must all pull aside our differences and defend one another. Because if we allow this to continue to be unchecked, by the time
I went to back.
Yeah, that's why I was like, I don't remember any of that.
use ICE as a pretext to
There
send
you go.
in the National Guard. And now they are doing just that. I've also said for the last couple of years that the extreme right in this country refused to accept the results of the Civil War.
The
have
extreme
repeatedly
right
called for a
pause that.
rematch.
The extreme right refuses to accept the results of the Civil War. Is that what he just said? Okay. I don't think he knows why we had a Civil War. I think somebody needs to teach this man a history lesson. Because Democrats are the reason why we had a Civil War. They literally wanted slaves to be counted, first of all, for representation when they were slaves. They didn't want to free the slaves. And they weren't accepting federal law as the law of the land. So we went to war. Of course, there's other things too. There's economic reasons. But that's the main gist of it, is that. What is he talking about? The literal leaders that led the Civil War to abolish slavery were Republicans. What is he talking about? Like, that's just, honestly, if you don't know just basic history, you're gonna believe this dude. You're gonna straight up believe this. Oh, he's a black dude. He's a black dude. He's super civil rights. He must know what he's talking about. Too bad Martin Luther King was also a Republican. He was not a Democrat. FYI to anybody who doesn't know that. So this guy is literally fighting the federal government. Civil War, which I've said on my previous lives before, but I'll say it again. I don't have a problem being a broken record player. The Civil War established federal law is supreme law of the land. It's not state law. It is federal law. When you look up what is the United States of America, we are a constitution, to be corrected, federal constitution republic, or constitutional republic, to be exact. We're not a democracy. We're a federal constitutional republic. Federal, meaning federal laws overpower state laws. So this man, who's literally a nobody, he's a mayor of a city, thinks that his executive orders are going to fight the federal government. What you're doing is rebelling against the federal government, which, by the way, is a crime. And they should investigate him and arrest him, because as a mayor, it is not your job to fight the federal government. It is your job to fight criminals and actually keep your city safe from crime, which he's failed to do. So I think this man should get arrested. But let's watch the next one.
A federal judge in Chicago on Thursday temporarily blocked U.S. President Donald Trump's deployment of hundreds of National Guard soldiers in Illinois. U.S. District Judge April Perry said she was having difficulty lending credence to the government's claims of violence at daily protests over Trump's immigration crackdown at an immigration facility in the Chicago suburb of Broadview. Perry said the behavior of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers has prompted the protests. Deploying Guard soldiers to Broadview, Perry said, would, quote, only add fuel to the fire that defendants themselves have started. Her order will remain in effect until at least October 23rd. Around the time of Perry's ruling, about half a dozen Guard soldiers could be seen milling around inside the gate at the ICE Center in Broadview. A group of about 10 protesters were outside. Meanwhile, a 3-judge panel at a federal appeals court in San Francisco on Thursday appeared likely to set aside the ruling blocking a similar deployment in Portland, Oregon. That would clear the way for hundreds of soldiers to enter that city. The outcomes of the two cases could have significant implications for Trump's expanding campaign to deploy military personnel to the streets of U.S. cities over the objections from their Democratic leaders. The Democratic governors of Illinois and Oregon have accused Trump of deliberately mischaracterizing small, mostly peaceful protests as violent and dangerous in order to justify National Guard deployments. Government lawyers in both courts said the Guard soldiers were needed to protect federal officers and property from demonstrators.
All right, that's it. I get it. So I find it interesting because they all say the same thing. It's mostly peaceful protesting. Mostly, key word there, meaning it's not absolute peaceful, okay? It's not absolutely peaceful. It's mostly peaceful. So that percentage that isn't peaceful is the problem. And that's his justification to bring National Guard. Specifically because they're choosing to protest mostly peaceful right in front of the ICE facilities. And that's a problem because you are affecting them from doing their job because they have to leave the facility, have to come back to the facility. And if they have to be fighting protesters on the way in and on the way out, you are obstructing their job. So it's not mostly peaceful. It's not peaceful at all. Because if you want it to be peaceful, then they would protest in an area where you're not actually hindering them doing their job. You're not slowing them down. You're not delaying. You're not doing any of that. All you're doing is protesting your grievances about the ICE crackdown. But because they happen to be right in front of the ICE facility, that means A, they're not peaceful because, again, they're stopping ICE from doing their job. And B, keyword, mostly peaceful, meaning there's a percentage of people that are doing things they're not supposed to be doing, like throwing themselves in front of ICE facility cars, or spitting at them, or shoving them, or whatever the case might be. So, I think that these Democrat leaders need to be held responsible for treating their American citizens in a way that is, to me, dangerous, cruel, un-American. It is not your job to protect those who are not even legal, nor are they citizens. It is your job to protect Americans first, and then everybody else. That is your job. It is basic, common sense leadership. I protect my partner and me before I protect anybody else. Who I live with, that is my number one priority. Everyone else outside of this house is my second priority. That's how a leader is supposed to think. It's common sense. Not for these people, unfortunately. They think the opposite. We should prioritize people we don't know instead of our own people, meaning American citizens. And I'm sorry, I don't care how heartless this might sound. If you're not here legally, you must leave. You can leave on your own free will, or we can force you to leave. We're being Americans by making you choose. We're giving you an option. At least we're giving you an option. There's people that don't even give you an option. They just kick you out. And we're giving you money too. We're giving you $1,000 to get the hell out of here. We don't have to do that. We're doing it because, we're American. We still love people at the end of the day. We understand why you came here, but you got to go. And the worst part about this is ICE is not even getting the amount of people that at this rate, they're not going to reach Obama ever. Okay? Not even, I don't think it even in 3 years from now. They're not going to reach Obama's 3 million deportation. Like, Obama, I think, is going to stay being the deporter in chief. I think Trump is trying to beat him, but I don't think he's going to get there. Because the amount of backlash ICE is getting from doing their job is, to me, too successful to actually hit 3 million or more. So instead, what they're doing is, this is my opinion, but I think what they're doing is they're scaring people. They're getting people out, of course, but there's not enough resources. And if cities don't cooperate, that's even harder to find people. So they're scaring people to leave voluntarily. And there's been more people that have self-deported than they have actually deported through ICE. That's really what they want. They don't care how they reach the 3 million as long as they reach it. And as a legal migrant who is a naturalized citizen, I'm totally okay with that. Let's go into Letitia James' indictment.
Back with more on our top story this hour. New York Attorney General Letitia James indicted on federal bank fraud charges. Just weeks after President Trump publicly called on the Attorney General to prosecute James and several other foes in what we are now learning was meant to be sent as a private message. That's according to an administration official who told NBC News the president thought he had sent the message directly to Pam Bondi. Well, now Democratic attorneys general from all across the country are slamming the indictment, calling it a weaponization of the DOJ. Joining us now is one of them, New Jersey's Attorney General Matthew Platkin, who's worked closely with AG James on a number of issues. Attorney General, thanks for being here. You are, again, one of this group of attorneys general backing James in this moment, but talking specifically about what's in this indictment. What issues do you see?
Well, look, this indictment is a sham. It's the crossing of a red line. It's the president ordering an attorney general and
wow, this was like deja vu
to punish his political opponents. You know, the federal government never brings these types of cases, and they certainly don't bring them against political opponents who they have publicly called scum and corrupt and said they're, quote, guilty of something. And when he couldn't find anyone with a serious law enforcement background to do the work, again, he brought a lackey in to do it themselves.
We are seeing Republicans argue that it was James who did political prosecutions. This from New York Congresswoman Elise Stefanik. James, quote, illegally weaponized her office to conduct a political witch hunt against Democrats, political opponents, most notably President Donald J. Trump. Again, that is a statement from Elise Stefanik. She goes on to call the charges specific and damning. What do you say to the argument, essentially, that James used her office for political revenge first?
That investigation was a multi-year investigation handled by career and seasoned lawyers and
notice that he's
in
cracking
her
right
office.
now.
It received
he wasn't ready for that question.
In court, she was successful. The Trump
No,
organization and his family has a right to appeal it.
They
What
did,
cannot
and they
do
won
is
the appeal.
take the criminal justice system of this nation and say, because you sued me for something that courts have held me liable for, I'm going to indict you on bogus charges. And for Elise Stefanik and everyone else to defend this and say supposedly they're concerned about weaponization, but it's okay to have an indictment signed by one person who has never prosecuted a case, not a single career prosecutor would sign their name to it. I've indicted a lot of cases as Attorney General. I have never signed an indictment without any career prosecutors joining me.
All right,
and nor would I, for a very simple reason. That.
All right, what a full of shit this guy is. Damn it, cursed again. All right. This is a work in progress, guys. All right, so under Rule 7C1 of the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure, only an attorney for the government must sign an indictment. So there's only one person that should sign the indictment. There doesn't have to be a career prosecutor signing with them. What he said is like BS. But I'll tell you why he said it. Since Lindsay Halligan was sworn in as U.S. attorney, she had full legal authority to sign alone. There is no rule requiring a career prosecutor to co-sign. So legally, the indictment is valid on its face. But in practice, high-profile indictments almost always include career prosecutors. The Department of Justice operates on internal norms, not just laws. Major cases, especially ones involving public officials, political figures, or allegations of corruption, almost always have career prosecutors leading or at least co-signing the indictment. Okay, so the reason why, they're pretty much criticizing the fact that she was the only one who signed the indictment is because they're making it seem like even though it's legal, it doesn't look legitimate because she wasn't a career prosecutor. So the debate is about trust. This whole debate with that supposedly this is a witch hunt and these are baseless charges and this is weaponization of the Department of Justice. Debate is on trust, right? So this is a problem I'm having. A career prosecutor, a lot of career prosecutors, indicted Donald Trump multiple times. And he was almost sent to prison. A former president, now current president, former president indicted multiple times from different states, and they were all aligned right before the election, which is weird how they all managed to do that. But that's not weaponization. So because they're all career prosecutors, they all have a history of indicting people, it's legitimate. It's still weaponization. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they're career prosecutors or not. They weaponize the Department of Justice to go after a sitting president. That's what happened. And the fact that they're using this as a straw man argument is so pathetic, because hello, all those charges that he had were dismissed. And the only one that wasn't dismissed was the Letitia James one on the fraud. And guess what? They appealed it, and as of right now, they won. Because the punishment was too cruel and it violated the 8th Amendment. So what is this guy talking about? There was no success that Letitia did. Zero. And she literally campaigned before any indictment on Donald Trump, before pressing any charges on Donald Trump. She said in her campaign, I'm going to get Trump. He's going to remember my name. I'm going to be a pain in his. So what are we talking about? The media is so full of it. So what if she wasn't a career prosecutor? She got an indictment, meaning a grand jury said, yeah, there's enough evidence to look into this lady. Isn't that what y'all did to Trump? So it was okay. So it was legitimate and not weaponization when it was against Trump, even though it was multiple of you attacking him at once, including the mainstream media. But then when it's one of y'all's, then it's illegitimate, it's baseless, it's a sham, it's weaponization. Sorry, I'm not buying it. It was weaponization under Biden's administration. They weaponized it against senators, they weaponized it against people of faith, they weaponized it against a sitting president. They weaponized it against everybody. But the media didn't say anything because it's their side. Now, the tables have turned. It's not their side anymore that's in charge. And Letitia James, well, guess what? They do have evidence on Letitia James. Just because they're claiming it's not a lot of money that it was fraudulently taken, it don't matter, bro. It's a couple $1,000s. You still committed a crime, and you are a sitting U.S. Attorney General of New York. So one of the most important states in the country. So I'm sorry, but this is not looking good for her. And it's not looking good for people like this guy who are also attorneys, and they're using this baseless argument, she wasn't a career prosecutor, therefore the fact that she signed it on her own makes it illegitimate. So who cares? There's no rule behind it. She didn't commit a crime by doing that. She signed it because that's the only legal thing you can do to make it legal is her signing it. You don't need anybody else to sign it. I just read it to you. Rule 7C1, only an attorney general is supposed to sign an indictment. You don't need career prosecutors. It's just a reason to not actually admit this lady is probably guilty. We'll find out. There's just an indictment, but she's probably guilty. And if she gets arrested, oh my God, I already hear it. I already hear everybody screaming about it. This is weaponization. This is accountability. That's what, Are we not above the law? Isn't that what she kept saying over and over again? Well, karma's a bitch, ain't it? All right. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. I really am. Looking forward to that one. Let's go over to the government shutdown, day 12. This one's very entertaining.
We got a 1-year extension. Why don't we sign on right now?
Let me ask you a question. Did
Why don't we
you
sign
get
on right
permission
now?
from your boss?
Why don't we sign on right now?
Did your boss, Donald
You
Trump?
can easily extend
Did
the
your boss-
ACA
did your
right
boss,
now.
Donald Trump,
He's
give
not
you
my
permission?
boss.
Yes, he is.
No, he's not. And by the way,
So let me ask you a
why
question.
did you vote to
Let me
shut
ask
the
you a
government
question.
down?
You
Why
know
did
I
you vote to
didn't-
shut
Let
it
me
down?
ask you a question.
For years, you
Well,
always lectured about how we need to
you're
keep the
making
government
You're
open.
making a show of this to
No,
make
it's
yourself
sad.
relevant.
It's sad. You could
It's
easily
an
sign on to
You're
this.
embarrassing
You
yourself
could
right
sign
now.
on to this. The only
You're
embarrassment
chasing
here is you.
clout. You're an
You
embarrassment.
could sign on to the bill.
Let me ask you a question.
You have 4 Democrats on here.
Let me
Why
ask you a
won't you
question.
sign
Let me
on?
ask you a question.
This is very
It's an
entertaining.
Let me ask you a
for 1
question.
year.
You voted for the one big
An
ugly bill,
extension.
correct?
I voted for a
The
tax cut
largest-
bill that gave
the
the largest
largest
tax
cut-
cut
the
to
largest-
Americans in history,
the
including, by
largest-
the way, the average New Yorker getting a $4,000 tax cut. Are you against that?
You're embarrassing
Do you want to
yourself right now.
cut the standard deduction in
The
half? Is that
largest
what you
cut
wanted
to
to do?
Medicaid in
No, we
American
rooted
history.
out
You voted
waste,
for that.
fraud, and abuse, by the
You
way.
voted
Tom DiNapoli, the
for a
Democratic
permanent-
controller of New
Let
York,
me ask you a question.
pointed out that $1.2
If
billion
you're
were
gonna-
wasted.
Listen, you're not gonna
wasted.
talk. You're not gonna talk to
wasted.
me.
Look at how it gets. You know who's losing in this argument.
Because you don't want to hear what I have to say.
Oh, I'm
So
listening.
why
Go
don't you
ahead.
just keep your mouth shut?
Oh,
because you
is
showed
that-
up.
is that the way to
you
talk?
showed up. You showed up.
Yeah.
And so you voted for this one
I
big
signed
ugly
on
bill.
for this. You can extend it
A
right now.
permanent extension of massive tax breaks for your billionaire donors.
So 90% of
So
Americans.
they can get a permanent extension.
90% of
But
Americans
working
take the
class
standard
Americans
deduction.
can't? Is that right?
90% of Americans take the standard deduction,
Is that
right?
right?
If you had your way, the standard deduction would have been cut in half. That
No
would have been a
one-
massive tax increase
no one-
on Americans all across the country.
You're
You support
here,
that?
unfortunately.
You're against
to
lifting
use
the cap on
billions
salt?
Of your billionaire
You're,
donors.
the
That's
billionaire
unfortunate.
donors lifting the
That's
cap on
correct.
salt. We put a income cap in place.
Why are you here right now?
An income
Where the
cap.
re- where
Well,
the rest
didn't
of
you
your
want all
Republican
Republicans
colleagues?
to be here?
Where
I'm
the
here.
rest, where are the rest of your
You
Republican
wanted
colleagues?
Republicans to be here. I'm here.
Why are you
And by
here?
the way,
What-
you can
what-
pass an ACA extension right now. Sign
your
on to this
boss-
bill.
did your boss
Sign
Donald
on
Trump-
to the bill.
Is your boss Donald Trump behind
All right,
that?
HR
that's it.
5145. Why don't you get on it?
Mike, is your boss Donald Trump behind that?
Why won't you get on it?
Because you don't work for the American people.
Oh, I do. I
You
work
don't
for,
work for
the
the
people of
That's
New
it.
York.
That's
I
it.
work for the
Take it
people
off.
of my district.
All right. The other one's like the same shit, except it's 2 Democrats against the House Speaker. Okay. So let me clue you in on what the Democrats are trying to do. Remember that we need 7 votes to pass the continuing resolution to fund the government. Okay? Remember that. I said that last live. Okay. You with me? Cool. Now, their reason to vote no and keeping the government shut down is because of the ACA extended subsidies that was done when COVID was happening. Okay? You're still with me. All right. So the ACA, Obamacare, there was a tax credit subsidy that happened when COVID hit because, everybody was getting sick. A lot of people didn't have insurance, right? So they extended the ACA to people that were making 400% higher than the poverty line. 400%. Well, you're going to ask me, what does that even mean, Marianne? What do you mean 400%? Let me clue you in. That means middle class families. That means somebody making $50,000 a year can qualify for Obamacare. That's not what Obamacare was for. Somebody that makes $50,000 a year is a middle class person who can qualify for a employer's insurance, or an insurance that they would actually have to pay monthly for because they're not poor. The ACA was for people that were not super poor where they qualify for Medicaid, but they weren't well enough where they can actually afford a monthly payment on insurance. So when they did that, they removed the cap because there was a cap. You had to make an X amount of money, so you couldn't be Medicaid qualified, but you couldn't be making $50K either. You had to be making like 35, 25, 40. 40 would be the max, like 48,000. You can't hit $50K to be able to have the ACA. Especially if you had children, you would qualify for the ACA. Now, when they extended this during I believe it was 2022. Let me confirm that really quick for you, but I'm pretty sure it was 2022 when they did the Inflation Reduction Act. So when they extended it, they didn't put a cap, and they made it still temporary, that it would expire this year. You have to ask yourself, well, if they had already extended it in the Inflation Reduction Act bill, why didn't they just make it permanent? Why make it temporary again to then have to extend it again? Well, because they use that as a political football. That's their leverage. They extended it under the Inflation Reduction Act bill, and they said, we're going to make this temporary again until 2025. That way when 2025 hits and we have to do another CR, they can say, no, we're not going to pass a CR from the government because this is temporary and we have to extend it. But why didn't you just make it permanent last time when you had already extended it? Because it's leverage. They're using socialized healthcare for middle-class families as leverage to fund the government. Think about that. They're telling Hakeem Jeffrey, who's such a pathological liar, is literally telling the American people, straight up lying to us, that our premiums are going to go up if they don't pass this extension. That is a flat out lie. Guess what? Our premiums are going up because of the extension, bro. Like, these people straight up think we're stupid. And it's insulting because you straight up are insulting my intelligence and everybody like me. You actually think, I want you guys to really, really think this one through, bro. For real, like, I need you to think about this. If you are making $50,000 a year and you have a subsidized healthcare, who's paying for it, bro? If you're not paying for it monthly, who's paying for that healthcare? Taxpayers, meaning people that make more than you. Guess what? When the government is the one subsidizing, taking it from the people with more and subsidizing your healthcare, the middle class people like me, people like you, the premium people, the insurers, the providers, like, well, if the biggest employer of the world, the United States government, is the one paying for my services, I'm gonna jack up the price. Of course. I would too if I were them. I get it. The government has endless money. All they know how to do is spend money, and they spend it without a care in the world because they don't make anything. They just use our tax dollars to fund things that we probably don't even need. This is one of them. Why does somebody that makes $50,000 a year need subsidized healthcare? They can clearly pay for their own health insurance. I'm sorry. All you're doing is lying to people by saying that because I make $50K a year, I have to have my healthcare subsidized with this lie that because I'm not paying for it now, I'm good. I'm saving money. No, I'm actually losing money in the long run because those premiums are going to freaking go up. And the goal is, I don't want to just make 50. I want to make 80, 100, 200, 300. You get the point. So the more money I make, the more money they take out of me to pay for people like, people that are making 50, 40K a year who are getting subsidized healthcare. This is a flat out lie. The Affordable Care Act subsidy does not lower premiums. It makes them more expensive. You are subsidizing the middle class health insurance in the name of, we're helping them. People are going to die. No, you're not helping us. You're making it worse. You're saying that we are incapable of paying for our own health insurance. We're too stupid to realize that you're lying to us straight to the face. Hakeem Jeffrey is a pathological liar. The Democrat Party are pathological liars. And it's so sad that people refuse to acknowledge reality for what it is. You can look this up on your own, guys. This is not something that's coming out of me like out of thin air. This is shit I've looked up And you can find it for yourself. Will premiums go up? And the answer is yes, they will. It's basic economics. When you subsidize something that shouldn't be subsidized, premiums will go up. Demand will go up and supply will go down. Basic economics 101. But people, unfortunately, public school system doesn't teach you that because they don't want you to learn about that stuff. That way you can believe Hakeem Jeffries' line as. All right. So let's move on to Democrat running AG. Bro, this guy, I can't believe this guy is still running, bro. Another psychopathic Democrat. No, not this. Not this. I'm done with this. It's the same thing. Is this?
With just 5 weeks before Virginians cast their ballots for new leaders, new allegations and admissions are coming to light for both Democrats and Republicans.
Yeah, Democrats are having to respond to outrage over violent text messages from Jay Jones, the Democratic candidate for Virginia Attorney General. And earlier this week, 7 News reported on resurfaced claims from Democrats that John Reed, the Republican candidate for Lieutenant Governor, engaged with explicit racist material online. He denies the claims.
Well, this morning, 7 News reporter Cara Willis is breaking it down for us.
The Virginia Democratic Party targeting Republican Lieutenant Governor candidate John Reed throughout the week through email blasts, on media availability, and on their official X account.
According to these reports, he seems to have engaged in white supremacist extremism and sexualized violence on social media and reposted content from these particular accounts.
Democrats are pointing to a report about a Tumblr account that engaged with explicit material dating back over a decade, despite it not being conclusively connected to Reed, who has called the issue a smear campaign.
I know in the past you've said that the call for you to step down and the refocus on this issue is extortion, but did you engage with this material?
No one's calling for me to step down. This is all fake. It was discredited in April and it's discredited now. I'm not talking about it because it's all fabricated.
Earlier this year, Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin called the issue a distraction, but later rallied behind Reed.
If there is no evidence that's been able to be produced, what do you make of the Democratic Party of Virginia making this push, having
well, they're liars.
Availability?
They're liars. Yeah, that's what they are. They know that I'm about to win, and they're doing everything they can to try to damage me.
The Democratic Party of Virginia says Reed owes Virginians an apology. The party has not responded to our request about producing evidence for the claims. This week, Democrats are dealing with an October surprise of their own after messages sent by Democratic candidate for Attorney General Jay Jones surfaced. The messages sent to another lawmaker talked about shooting the Republican Speaker of the State House, Todd Gilbert. One of the messages read, 3 people, 2 bullets, Gilbert, Hitler, and Pol Pot. Gilbert gets 2 bullets to the head. Adding, put him with, quote, the 2 worst people you know, and he receives both bullets every time. The messages were sent back in 2022 after Jones had already resigned from his seat in the House of Delegates. Jones responded in a statement Friday writing, I take full responsibility. He offered his deepest apologies to Speaker Gilbert and went on to say, reading back those words made me sick to my stomach. I am embarrassed, ashamed, and sorry.
In the case of Jay Jones, the Democrats have a violence problem. It is very clear they keep talking about violence.
All right, that's it.
Well,
wow. All right, so that Democrat those text messages were like from 2 years ago. I'm not sure who took a screenshot of that and kept it for this long. Politics is dirty, bro. It's dirty. You gotta have all of your skeletons out of the closet before you run for anything in this town. Let me tell you, because if not, they will come after you. They don't care. You gotta be battle tested. And this guy clearly was not. Yeah, I don't think anybody that gets caught writing that somebody should get shot in the head and their kids should also get shot in the head should run for office. That's kind of like a no-brainer. Not sure why this guy is still running. He should have, the minute that was exposed, that should have been like it for him. I don't get it. The fact that he's still running just tells me that Democrats really don't care. They only care about optics when it's the other side. But when it's their side and the options don't look real good, they don't care. They're like, yeah, just, turn the page. Just throw that under the rug. It's all right. Yeah, he was caught saying that he was going to shoot, like he wanted to shoot, his political opponent in the head. But, whatever. Like, it was just a text message. Like, he was kidding. He was messing around. It was a joke. It's not like we just had a political assassination, like, literally a month ago. But no, it's okay. He can continue running. It's okay. He's literally running for Attorney General. That's like the top prosecutor of Virginia. And they caught him saying that his political opponent should get shot in the head. Yeah. I don't know what else to... I don't even know, bro. Like, people think that this is like, they're both bad. I don't know. Are they? Are they both bad? I think there's one that's worse than another. I'm not saying the Republicans are perfect. They're not, by far. There's a lot of people within the Republican Party that I don't even get along with, or like Candace Owens, for example. I personally don't like her. I don't like the way she pretty much attacks Jews, like if it's, hotcakes or something. Like, I don't know. I don't like it. I'm not a fan of Ben Shapiro, though, even though he's, you would think after, if I don't like Candace, I would like Ben, but I don't like either of them because they're too extreme for me. I'm not really a big fan of Nick Fuentes. These are all people in the Republican Party. Just because you're part of the same, party doesn't mean you all get along, right? People for some reason assume that because you're part of the same party, you all get along, kumbaya. No, we all have different perspectives. We have a different view of life. We all experience life differently. But I think we would all agree that if you get caught with text messages that literally expose you for being somebody that is condoning literal violence, I don't think you should ever run for office, ever. And you should just remove yourself from politics altogether. That, anybody who's running for office, mayor, representative, senator, I don't care. I don't care what you're running for. If you are running to take our tax dollars as your salary and you get caught inciting literal violence, whether it's through a text, a voicemail, a voice message, I don't give a damn. You should completely be dismissed from the political world altogether. Especially if it's your side who says some shit like that. But whatever, Democrats don't have a backbone. They can't actually tell their own people, what are you doing? Get out. You're making us all look bad. Because it's like, that's literally how I see it. At the end of the day, if somebody on the right has said some shit like that, I believe the right has a sense of morality, and they'll be like, yeah, you need to get out. We may not all get along about a lot of things, but we definitely could all agree that you don't say shit like that. Get the fuck out. So, Democrats can't do that because they don't have morality. They don't. They think that breaking our laws is a human right. They think that abortion is a human right. They think that borders don't exist. They think that ICE agents are evil, so yeah, they don't have morality. They're living in this false reality. But I think common sense eventually wins, just like capitalism always wins at the end. And people are going to vote for Reid, not for that lunatic who for some reason hasn't left his run for AG. So let's talk about this Nobel Peace Prize. I think this is correlated to Cuba eventually. Whenever you're ready, Les. President Trump gets dedicated the Nobel Peace Prize. You can read that because I can't see. What? There's words there. Can you read that? Because I can't. Hold on.
Okay. Machado credits Trump for Nobel win. Trump snubbed again. Outrage explodes online.
Oh, pause that. Yeah, read that whole thing.
So this says, no, it's fine. This recognition of the struggle of all Venezuelans is a boost to conclude our task to conquer freedom. We are on the threshold of victory, and today, more than ever, we can count on President Trump, the people of the United States, the peoples of Latin America, and the democratic nations of the world as our principal allies to achieve freedom and democracy. I dedicate this prize to the suffering people of Venezuela and to President Trump for his decisive support of our cause.
All right. Go on to the next video. So that's the lady who went against Maduro, and they removed her from being his opposition, and they almost killed her. All right, I'm ready.
And now to Venezuela, where President Nicolas Maduro said his government warned Washington about plans by a local extremist terrorist group to place an explosive device at the U.S. Embassy in Caracas. In a televised address, the president announced that his security forces prevented what he described as a false flag operation aimed at planting explosive at the U.S. Embassy.
This is a typical false flag operation, we could call it. A typical provocation operation to then create a scandal and use the communication power through networks and media to blame the Bolivarian government and start an escalation of confrontation where nobody's going to ask how it was done. Who did it? Where nobody's going to listen to anyone, but instead they're going to hear the rattling of machine guns and missiles. So, it was a provocation action.
He added the operation was intended to escalate tensions between Venezuela and the U.S., but President Maduro stated that two sources, one domestic and one international, had informed the government of the possible attack by what he referred to as extremist sectors of the local Venezuelan right.
Now it's been confirmed, and as soon as I personally was able to verify that in the information we had there was a credible and very destructive threat by the terrorist group that was taking care of this type of thing, I ordered Comrade Jorge Rodriguez to communicate through all channels with the United States government. He did it immediately. The reaction of the people who communicated with Jorge Rodriguez was positive.
Now, according to Maduro, the terror group may have placed an explosive device at the U.S. Embassy with the intent of laying blame of the Venezuelan government and provoking a conflict with the United States. He added that the operation was allegedly backed by individuals whose names will be disclosed in due course, and that investigations are still ongoing.
The investigation continues. I can say that this afternoon, Dr. Jorge Rodriguez, head of peace dialogues for Venezuela, officially informed the United States government of those responsible for preparing this terrorist attack and where those responsible are located. He also informed them that as far as we're concerned, we're pursuing the search and capture of some of these individuals who are in Venezuelan territory.
Now, the embassy has been largely inactive since March of 2019 following President Donald Trump's decision during his first term in office to break ties with Maduro. Since then, the embassy has maintained only staff responsible for security and the upkeep of the premises. Diplomatic tensions between the U.S. and Venezuela have only been compounded by a series of recent U.S. military strikes targeting Venezuelan vessels which Washington claims were carrying drugs. At least 4 vessels have been attacked in the past few weeks, with over 20 people reported killed in these strikes. Speaking to the U.S. Navy sailors in Virginia, President Trump described the operations as stopping drugs at an unprecedented level.
All right.
In recent weeks, the Navy...
All right. Okay. So, Venezuela is a socialist country. Maduro just used the word comrade. That is what a communist uses. So, when you are a socialist country, you're very close to becoming a communist country. And we all know that communism has never really succeeded at all. And it's killed millions and millions of people. There's case studies of this. So, when the Peace Prize winner who's the person going against Maduro's regime, who is considered right, the right wing. He called it the local right wing. I think he said that there was like some type of connection between the right wing and a terrorist plot. Okay. Well, guess what? The right wing is the party that wants democracy in Venezuela and wants to remove Maduro because he is a socialist and a dictator. He did not want to go against her in an election, so he forced her out. That's an authoritarian. That's somebody we shouldn't be associated with. Especially because he's sending boats with drugs to the U.S. So that's another reason why we shouldn't be associating ourselves with them as far as like business wise. And if we have somebody who's in opposition to Maduro and she gets a Nobel Peace Prize and dedicates that Peace Prize to Trump, what does that tell everybody, right or left? Donald Trump is a peacemaker. Somebody that was just given the Peace Prize said, I don't deserve it. That's why she gave it to him. Because he is going out of his way to solve a bunch of things that are international because they indirectly affect us. So because they indirectly affect us, he's going out of his way to solve them. I personally think if he can get this Venezuela thing done, Cuba is next. And I pray to God that Cuba is next. Because it's been how many years already? 70 years since Fidel Castro?
I don't know.
Too long.
Too long.
The Cuban regime needs to fall. The Venezuelan regime needs to fall. These socialists, like with these weird pretend commie, because they can't even be actually commie because they all know that doesn't work. That's why they need tourists. That's why they need like humanitarian aid from Americans, because they know communism doesn't work. Socialism doesn't work either. But it's a slower delay to communism. Communism, we all know, it just kills people. It starves people to death and kills people. Socialism is like the delay to get to communism. So at the end of the day, right now we're in there's a turning point, literally. Like that word that Charlie Kirk used is perfect to label what's going on right now as turning point. But I don't think it's more of a turning point. I think it's more of a crossroads. We're either choosing socialism route or capitalism. Socialism is actual control over society, actual authoritarianism, actual censorship. Capitalism is independence, liberty, freedom, prosperity. And we get to choose which road we want to take. Do you want to take the capitalist American route? Or do you want to take the China, Venezuela, Cuba, Russia, North Korea route? We have case studies. We know what happens when we take the socialist route. I think we should take the latter and always choose the American capitalist society, because at the end of the day, that's what we know doesn't kill millions of lives. So this ACA, Medicaid, well, it's not Medicaid, well, technically it is, whatever. The ACA expansion subsidies is towards socialism. We don't want that. So I really hope the government comes back up in a couple of days. I said 2 weeks to a friend of mine. I don't think it's going to be 2 weeks. We might hit 30 days again, like the last shutdown in Trump's first term. It was 35 days at the time. Check this out. So the last time we had a shutdown with Trump, it was 35 days, right? The reason why they shut down the government is because they didn't want to build the wall. Well, guess what? We ended up spending double the money shutting down the government than we would have building the wall. It's just these little things that legislators try to do to leverage their policies by taking advantage of the American people's paychecks, to me, is evil. And I think after the government comes back on, there needs to be a law that says if you're going to shut down the government, you yourself will not be paid. Everybody else will still be paid, but we'll make sure your paycheck is cut. And I bet they will do their best to avoid a government shutdown in the future if they know their asses ain't gonna get paid. So that's just me. That's what I think. I think that if you're gonna shut the government down, then you yourself should pay the price, nobody else. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for being a truth seeker. Subscribe, like, and share.